Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a word that you've probably heard and maybe even felt: burnout. It seems to be everywhere these days, right? It can creep up on you slowly, or sometimes it just hits you like a ton of bricks. So we're going to break down what it really is, how it happens, and most importantly, what you can actually do about it. Let's start by tackling a big misconception. So when you hear the word burnout, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For a lot of us, it's just, being super stressed or working way too hard. But is that really all it is? Is it just a temporary feeling you can shake off with a long weekend? Well, as you might guess, the answer is a lot more complicated than that.
The reality is, burnout goes so much deeper. It isn't just about having a huge to-do list. It's this whole process of depletion. It hits you physically, it drains you emotionally, and it just completely exhausts you mentally. It's a state of total exhaustion that literally changes how you feel, how you think, and how you show up in the world.
All right, so let's dig into what we're actually talking about here. Because understanding burnout means seeing it as way more than just the result of putting in too many hours at the office. So what is it, really? Think of it like this. Burnout happens when the demands being placed on you are consistently, day in and day out, bigger than the resources you have to deal with them. And here's the really wild part. It often doesn't start with you being miserable. It actually tends to start with the total opposite. You're highly motivated, you're passionate, you really genuinely want to give it your all.
The best way to picture it is to think of your personal energy as a fuel tank in a car. When you start a new job or project, that tank is full. You're driving with purpose, with passion. But after a while, that little warning light on the dashboard flicks on. You see it, but you think, nah, I can push it a little further. I've got this. So you keep your foot on the gas. Until finally, the engine just sputters and dies. You're out of fuel. That is burnout.
And there are a few things that can drain that tank way faster than others. Now, this isn't every single cause, but these are some of the big ones. You've got the external stuff, like a crushing workload or feeling like all your hard work is just invisible. Then there's the emotional side, which is a huge factor, especially for people in caring professions like nursing or teaching. And sometimes the pressure is coming from inside, from your own perfectionism, or from this habit of constantly giving and giving without ever stopping to refuel your own tank.
So how do you know if that engine is running on empty? Let's talk about what this actually looks like. Because burnout isn't just some vague feeling of being tired. It has three very specific core symptoms that you can learn to spot. Yep, when experts talk about the actual experience of burnout, it really boils down to three main pillars. And recognizing these is absolutely the first step to doing something about it. First up, you've got emotional exhaustion. This is that deep in your bones, tired feeling that a good night's sleep just doesn't touch. You feel inwardly empty, and things you used to love just don't bring you joy anymore. The second is depersonalization. This is a tricky one. It's like a defense mechanism kicks in, and you start to feel cynical, detached, almost cold toward your job or the people you work with. It's a way of creating distance to protect what little energy you have left. And the third is a feeling of reduced efficacy. This is when you start to feel like you're just failing. You can't concentrate, you're making mistakes, and you feel completely overwhelmed and unable to cope.
Now, here's a really important thing to remember. You don't just wake up one morning with full-blown burnout. It's a gradual slide. It's a slow burn that happens over time, often in stages that we can actually identify.
Let's walk through that progression. It usually starts with that phase of over-engagement. Working late, skipping lunch, taking on everything, all driven by that initial passion. But then comes the onset of exhaustion. The first warning signs start to pop up. Maybe you're not sleeping well. You're a bit more irritable. You find yourself canceling plans with friends. From there, it can escalate into chronic exhaustion. This is where physical symptoms start showing up: headaches, stomach problems, and that tired feeling becomes your new normal. And the final stage? Total exhaustion, a complete physical and emotional breakdown. At this point, just functioning, let alone working, can feel absolutely impossible.
So you can see how this all adds up. And the cost of ignoring those warning signs is serious. We're not just talking about having a bad week. The toll on your actual health, on your body and your soul is profound.
And we're talking about real physical consequences here. That prolonged stress can lead to everything from constant headaches and stomach issues to a trashed immune system and even serious heart problems down the line.
And the psychological impact is just as real. Burnout can absolutely pave the way for clinical depression and anxiety disorders. In some cases, people might even turn to substance abuse just to cope with the feeling. The takeaway here is simple. This is a serious health condition.
Okay, I know that was all pretty heavy, but here's the good news, and it's really good news. Burnout is not a life sentence. It is something we can prevent, and it is something we can recover from. So let's look at how.
So let's break this down into two parts. On one side, you have prevention. This is all the proactive stuff you do before the tank is empty. This is about building up your defenses, intentionally scheduling rest, learning how to say no and actually mean it, and making sure you have hobbies and friends outside of work. Then, on the other side, you have recovery. This is for when burnout has already taken hold. These are the active healing steps, like getting professional help from a therapist, finding a support group with people who get it, and honestly, fundamentally restructuring your life to put your well-being first.
So let's bring all of this together. If you take one thing away from our explainer today, I hope it's a new way of looking at what burnout really means.
Ultimately, we have to get this. Burnout is not a sign that you are weak. It's not a personal failing. It is what happens to the most dedicated, the most passionate among us. It's the logical, predictable result of giving too much of yourself for far too long without getting enough back. It's a sign that you cared, a lot, and you gave everything you had until there was just nothing left in the tank.
Which brings us to this one final, really important question. Your energy, it's your most valuable, most precious resource. It's finite. So how are you going to protect it? What boundaries will you put in place? What will you do to refuel your tank, not just when the warning light is blinking red, but every single day? Because that right there might be the most important work of all. Thanks for tuning in.